DeGregorio's Death Sessions, number 7. I am working today with a notion of what to do when you don't want to do. And for me, working on spec, as I have been my entire life, it's hard because you think that when you have a passion project that it should be all-encompassing, and it is enough to keep it going for sure, but there are days where your uphill seems vertical and you want to shorten that, but you can't. And so there are days, not when you don't have passion, but when you're overwhelmed, I guess, which is a theme in a lot of self-help for just being alive. Thankfully, I've worked out some of that where overwhelm doesn't crush me as much as it used to in daily life. So I'm not really bugging about that stuff anymore, thankfully. But I am bugging in terms of here's the thing. I've reached out to a certain entity, a theater, and a program, and the steps to perhaps being considered for a production, just via email. So, but in the transfer of energy and finally putting out there the notion that I'm doing this is a big first step of sending an email inquiring about the process of being even considered for the program. And the email back was lickety split, which was exciting, but then I started reading all the parameters and all the things, and it freaked me out because I have, I guess, longer to go than I initially thought. It was a dual thing. They have for consideration, it would be not till June or July of 25, and my instant gratification brain is like, well, that seems like too far away. I'll be doing something else by then. But then if you really boil it down, that's a pretty good runway to get something done. Maybe a little bit on the long side, but the fact that I'm only at second draft, haven't read it for an audience yet, that seems reasonable. But it wasn't only that, it was sort of having to send a press kit that this isn't a development thing. This is more of a, we'll present something you've been presenting yourself. So now I'm in the quandary of, how do I create the pathway of, I've presented it before. It's got a lineage, I guess, of being performed. There's some press, there's some social media. We could generate that for sure. And all I would need was to rent a place and have a cutaway to the crowd or a photo of the crowd. But so much of today's attention economy is, how do you get people in? When do you get them in? What do you share in terms of the joy of the experiencing it for the first time? You know what I mean? Like, so I don't want to burn out a crowd if it's going to be largely family and friends in the beginning. You don't want to, hey, come see me read this thing before I produce this thing, and then please come see it again once you know pretty much what's happening. Now, of course, in the development, a lot of shit's going to change, but it's a little premature. So I guess it's a good way. Any definitive answer in this path, any deadline, anything like that, is going to be, I have to, again, using my newfound half full tendency rather than my half empty tendency, or my liabilities being assets tendencies, I need to say, okay, that's information. That's a reasonable amount of time. This is what the expectation is if you were to be accepted. You still have to go through the application process. If you're not able to fill out the application because you don't have this, that, or the other, that's a great indicator of the shit you still have to do. All of this while you're sitting there praying for the finished product is part of why today, even doing this video is arduous because it was gonna be easy for me to skip it because I don't have an audience. I don't have an appetite for this other than I am doing it for my own edification, for my own process, for my own documentation of hopefully that someday I'll be a lot more confident. I'll have had a run of this show. I'll have a lot of feedback. I'll know a lot more in time, but these videos are literally just appointments kept with myself at this point, and that's fine. Again, my asset is my anonymity because I can struggle through this process and I can make it work for me by not blowing it for myself. Meaning, okay, because no one wants this, no one cares, don't bother. But, you know, that battle with self is really the only important battle. The battle with incoming feedback, or the battle of criticism, or the battle of believing the praise, that's a battle that I'm not facing right now. I am literally facing the battle of myself right now, and putting a camera in my face and lighting this joker up and doing this before anyone's asking, and also doing it sometimes before I want to do it, and putting, I guess I'm using a lot of what what's his name, Pressfield, is it Stephen Pressfield? Pressfield is the last name of the author. He wrote what's his name, is it Stephen? Yep. Trust your first instinct, Carl. Stephen Pressfield's War of Art, Going Pro. He talks about what I am experiencing now, and now I am actually putting it on camera. Now, he may even say that this video itself is resistance because I'm not doing the thing, but I am doing the thing because the thing is the thing, and I don't want to do this thing, which is sell out for a camera, sell out for a vlog, sell out for sharing, you know, to very few, but potentially sharing before completion. But I have at least finished the drafts. I am tinkering. I am conceptualizing how and when and where I would present this. I have had a lovely offer from a friend who said, hey man, why don't we just scrap all the production end of this thing, and why don't I'll host it. Well, you can come to my house, invite 5 people, 8 people, and you just read this thing, tell us the story. That freaked me out. That freaked me out because I don't know if fellow performers are similar in this way, but I'd rather read it to a bunch of strangers who can roll their eyes at it and say not for me, rather than have people I care about out there seeing me being this vulnerable. And so that incredible offer is also my biggest fear at this point. And that brings me to the idea that I've said to many people that early in my development, childhood development, I was an introvert. I'm actually a shy person. And people marvel or disbelieve that. I guess I have a hybrid personality. I've done a couple of these Bristol Myers tests. I've done the Gallup poll, Clifton skills test, and I am right there. I'm 51-49 extrovert. So I guess that the scale is tipped to extrovert, but not by much. It's not a 70-30 thing. And so I have conditioned or trained myself to go outside of my shyness. As a child, I was very shy, and thankfully I found a way to, well, it wasn't really a way. I basically, my inner monologue used to be, don't be a pussy or whatever. Sorry for the language, but my inner monologue in times of high stress and fear and stuff was like, don't be a pussy, just do it. And that propelled me toward things that I was scared of. And I guess at some point I got inured to it, but it didn't come naturally. And I think a lot of artists, and today in this day and age of influencers and attention seeking, is, you know, your Aunt Millie is attention seeking on Facebook, showing off her just baked oatmeal cookies. That's attention seeking. And so the seemingly cross purpose of a performing artist wanting to be seen but not seeking attention has been a push and pull in my life. I've always wanted attention for certain things and then wanted to be left alone for other parts of my life. And I think that maybe is just the push and pull of a normal personality, maybe. I don't know. I've craved the idea of having a normal personality for a long time, and now it's less important. But let's just say that it isn't. The old feelings can creep up on you, especially when the thought of sitting on a even if it were me sitting on a small chair with a music stand, even sitting there reading to 8 people, holding their attention for an hour with this script is that freaks me out. But why would that be so burdensome in my mind, and yet I would invite an audience in? That's sort of where I'm at now, because if you can't do it eventually you're gonna have to rehearse it. A lot of the acting classes had less than 10 people, and you put all your heart and soul into those performances. So, but those were other people's words, and I think that's where the rubber hits the road for a solo performance or anything you've written. You got to act it, and you wrote the damn thing. So it's really an exposure of you and the limits of your thinking, or the limits of your talent, or the limits or the massive expansion of them, or the communicating of them, or the bravery to share. All of that is in the bouillabaisse of what I'm endeavoring to do. And without being too precious about it, it's not going to end in gunplay, likely, and it's not going to end in injury, and it's not going to end. I don't have anything incendiary enough to receive a punch. So I guess, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that brave. It just is a vulnerable feeling, and it's, I guess, to stave off the potential humiliation of, man, that was corny. That's really what it comes down to, is, man, that was corny. And you don't want to be corny. Being from New York area, I mean, that used to be the biggest. I guess it's become less. Corny was the worst. That's just the truth. That would start a fight. You corny motherfucker. Boom, right there. But that is the tightrope we walk, right? We have to put it out there and find out. And I'm wearing a David Bowie t-shirt. Not a big Bowie fan growing up, but he was everywhere, so he was hard to avoid. But limited budget, he wasn't a guy who I bought music from. Now I can listen, but the one thing that made him so exciting to many is the recreation of his image over and over, but also just the pure creativity. And I don't know, I saw a documentary about his last few days, and the idea that he was in the beginning of his career with Space Oddity, Ground Control to Major Tom, was like a novelty act. He was looking through a very narrow channel of only being a one-hit wonder, and he was stuck, and he had to fight through being a one-hit wonder. But as he was ailing and passing away and dying, they made a documentary where he put a new band together, and his last album, he had a through line where there was a scene in a video he shot where there's a spacesuit of Major Tom crumpled. He's turned to dust. He's been on the moon dead all these years, or found in a space station. I don't remember exactly. But the 30-year span of following that storyline out through his music, through his videos, just the level he was playing at was I found that quite inspiring. And that, you know, he was such an artist that he you know, he died productively, meaning he had more left to give and got a chance to put it out there. And I'm sure, and he said it, that his family was the most important thing, and that I know is true too. So that in and of itself should take the pressure off whether or not I can read this for a few people. I'm just putting it out there that it's a vulnerable feeling, and I'm a little adrift, and I didn't want to shoot this video today because I was going to put it off till tomorrow, and I said, you know what, let me just do it. There's a lot harder things to do. Let me press on, let me battle resistance, which is what Stephen Pressfield coins as his thesis about what it is that you suffer with when you are procrastinating, or failing to produce, or failing to finish, or failing to put it out there, or shine even. He calls it resistance, and I pushed through the resistance to lay this track down today for the few, for the merry, for the tens of people. And that's okay, because again, this is a deal with me, between me and me, between me and my resistance, between me and, you know, my ramblings are not, they're not for, they need to be worked out, but they're not for the lack of, you know, craving to be interesting. You do jump out on these long forms. My plan is to talk as long as I can extemporaneously without much thought, to see if I can capture some good rounded out ideas, and seldom do I, as this video is evidence of. But again, I sat in the chair, I did the thing that I was dreading, the thing that I was, you know, ready to pack in, basically. I was ready to pack it in. I did 6. Who cares about 7? Okay, but, you know, let's have some sack and fucking end on at least on 10 or a dozen. And so that is the fight of resistance, that just sitting in this chair and talking about where I am this week on the desk session, where I am this week on creating this one-man show, We Carry the Light, is still where I'm at. I do have an appointment in a week or two with a friend who we are going to firm up, and that is very productive. So I'm making strides every week. I don't want to sound like I just sit in these sessions and bemoan my outcast state. And I have, you know, made query emails. I've sent an email out to a old casting contact. So if it were really just about accountability, what'd you do this week, that I've done my work. So thank you, and I hope we all can sort of push each other to the finish line and battle resistance, or fight our vulnerability, and have the balls to sit there and read a deep felt work from the heart to intimates. That's a heavy ask, but at some point you got to show the screenplay. At some point you got to screen the film. At some point you got to have opening night, and I guess I should try to enjoy this part, because those things are coming one way or another, just like life is coming. All right, well, thank you again. This is Carl D's Desk Sessions number 7. Peace.